And we're back. This is Steve Brown on the ROI Online Podcast. We're live streaming with Dr. Kris Wusterhausen of the Resurge Clinic in Weatherford, Texas. Dr. Kris, welcome to this live stream.
Afternoon, Steve. Hope all is well.
All is well. Things are getting kind of weird. The weather's changed some, and so I'm like having to wear a little hoodie. It went from like 80 or something, and all of a sudden it was like, "Well, I think it's going to snow or something. And it doesn't seem right now, does it?
Yeah, we were at some friends on Labor Day out at the lake, and it was like 95, 96, and their son, who's in Montana, called to let us know that it was already snowing there. So, it's just crazy to think how different areas of the country have such different, weather changes.
Yeah.
But it's upon us.
It's upon us. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about it. I think it's a good segue. A lot of people are starting to think about the flu season and preparing for when things get cold and what happens with us and our health. And so, what are some things, most of us know the typical stuff that we can get, a flu shot or some of these over the counter things that supposedly help you prevent or boost your immunity. What are some of the things that most people don't know about that they should be considering or could be considering, not only as a patient, but maybe as a provider that could be offering something new or different to their patients?
Well, this is going to be the most unique flu season that I think any provider or has dealt with, at least in my lifetime, because COVID is, at least in Texas, is by no means gone, but it is starting to slow a bit. Hospitalizations are down, death rates are down, and that's good. But now flu season is ever upon us. I mean, in the next 2 to 4 weeks, we'll start seeing a decent number of flu cases. I've already seen some flu in my practice in the last 2 weeks, so it's coming. So, we start with the basics. I think this is probably, if there ever was a year to get a flu shot, this is probably it. The flu shot's not an exact vaccine because they have to try to predict the strains that are going to come from the Far East over to us. And so I always tell my patients, unfortunately, the flu shot's not a 100% shot. Sometimes they really get it right, sometimes they don't. But we don't know until the flu season's practically over well, how much success was seen with that flu shot. But I just really think this year, unless you're just completely against flu vaccines, this is the year to get the flu shot. And then, of course, the good news is we're set up to be doing a lot of the things that we should already be doing. Social isolation, washing our hands. If we're sick, God forbid, if you're sick, just stay home. Okay. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that's the biggest thing. If anyone can get that, uh, if they can just bring that notion home that hey, if I'm really not feeling well, let's stay home. Um, I recommend to my patients, and I have been recommending my patients, vitamin D, high dose vitamin D right now, 5 to 10,000 international units a day to modulate the immune system. Zinc, I think zinc it's been, believe it or not, zinc has been very hard to get a hold of for most patients. It's been a national shortage of zinc, but if you can get your hands on, I recommend 25 to 50 milligrams of zinc a day. And then last but not least, good old vitamin C, getting your antioxidants, 1,000 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day. You really can take even much higher doses of vitamin C if you wish. And so that's kind of my supplement regimen. Elderberry is another great supplement that has become very popular in the last couple of years. I think it's a really, really good supplement to add. We use orthomolecular here at our office, and orthomolecular makes a very good elderberry supplement. And then, of course, you get into what are some of the other things. Well, eating healthy, exercising, really crucial to our immune systems. But then, as you already know, I'm a huge fan of thymosin alpha 1. If you haven't been on it, this is the perfect time to start it. Thymosin alpha 1 is a bioidentical peptide, which we've already told our audience, but I'll do it again.
Hmm.
Peptides are chain amino acids that are in certain sequences to cause certain functions. we have over 7,000 of them 7,000 of them naturally occurring in our bodies right now. And thymosin alpha 1 is made by the thymus gland, and it helps upregulate or modulate is probably the more correct term, modulate the immune system, so that when the body detects a foreign process, such as a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, a yeast, it has a much better opportunity to recognize that and fight it off before something happens. If you do get sick, despite thymosin alpha 1, most of us believe that there's a high likelihood you're going to have a not quite a severe case, if that makes sense. So, less symptoms. So like I tell my patients, I don't ever say thymosin alpha keeps you from getting COVID, but my belief is that you have a much better for a good outcome if you do get COVID than the average patient. So the good news is the things that we're going to pretty much tell you for COVID are the same things we're going to tell you for the flu. It's just really important that we realize, even though in a lot of areas it's still very pretty and nice outside, and we're going to be 90 degrees again this weekend. Oh, it's not flu season. No, September is flu season, and it's slowly coming in, and I think it's going to hit us pretty hard in late September, early October.
So, to me, I'm a little confused between what's the difference in a flu shot and a vaccine shot. We keep hearing all this conversation around the vaccine for COVID, but what's the difference in getting a flu shot and then the vaccine?
Well, same thing. So a flu shot is a vaccine, and it's just that with influenza, it's not one strain that causes every case of influenza. First of all, we have type A, type B, just two different types of the flu. And so, like I said, there are thousands of strains of the flu. So they try to predict early on what seems to going to be that strain that's going to be the major cause of the flu, create the vaccine for that flu, and then give that vaccine. And so they're trying to attempt to do the same thing with COVID, but they're starting from scratch, which is why it's taking a bit. So when people ask me about the COVID vaccine and they ask, am I going to take it? I do leave myself open to make a decision when the COVID vaccine comes out. Yes, it is. On one hand, it is going to be a new vaccine, and many vaccines have to start from scratch per se, and it takes years to come up with these vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't think that it is all that different than the flu vaccine. So it's not like they're really starting from scratch. They know how to do the flu vaccine, and they're just attempting to do it with COVID. Although you probably have heard AstraZeneca had to stop their phase 3 trial this week for an adverse event. Now, all that simply means is they had one participant that had an unexplainable event that they couldn't at the time, figure out exactly what was causing it. They basically could not rule out an adverse event from the vaccine. So that means that they're having to stop it, figure it out. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to just trash that vaccine and start over. It's probably more likely that they'll figure out that, well, okay, this is what happened and we're going to proceed. But that was a pretty big step back for that trial to have to halt it at the moment, because CDC came out, I believe it was last week, and sent out to providers that they're anticipating having a COVID vaccine by November 1st.
Hmm.
Now, I think that's probably a little quick. I think that's just they're trying to, because the next issue they're going to have is, okay, vaccines ready today, Steve, go get it. Well, how the heck are you going to be able to do that when you're trying to vaccinate millions of Americans in a very short period of time? I mean, you can imagine the chaos this is going to cause.
Yeah.
So my understanding is they're going to try to just get the vaccine out to as many different suppliers, providers, however you want to say it, to try to get it out there as quickly as possible.
Well, there seems to be some politicization around it, and so where I wanted to kind of steer this conversation was if we wanted to take the vaccine, it's not available. We have options that in the past, maybe especially me, I wasn't aware of, and like the thymosin
Hmm.
alpha.
Hmm.
And what was really interesting to me was learning that actually it's zinc and vitamin D is what fights inside of the cell against
Hmm.
the coronavirus, and naturally that's what fights against the flu virus as well.
Sure.
There's there's it's not necessarily the medicine that you take, but it could be the medicine is making the pathway into the cell bigger so that those bigger molecules can reach in. What are some other things? I read this great article on sauerkraut and how it's made, and I wasn't aware it's like that. That's a big source of calcium and other items that boost your immunity just from fermenting cabbage, and it's so easy.
Yeah, and I'm German, so it's right up my alley. I can remember as a kid, my grandmother used to make it, and I'm taking a sidestep, but if you've ever smelled sauerkraut
It's awful.
fermenting, it's god awful, and so but it turns into such deliciousness when it's done. So but I can always remember those big brown pots. I forget what they're called, but full of the fermenting cabbage. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So, actually, this discussion goes back to what a discussion that you and I have had before: cellular communication.
Hmm.
Basically, at the end of the day, that's nearly how everything works in the body is back to the cellular level. And with my training under Dr. Seeds, that's the big part that he always talks about is if you make cells communicate properly, everything gets better. And so of course vitamin C and zinc, they're crucial to cellular communication being optimal. Some of the other things are such simple things, but alkalinizing the body, like we've talked about before, using your 2 tablets of Alka-Seltzer Gold a day which is basically sodium bicarb, a base. Viruses, bacteria, fungi, yeast, etc., do not like base as much as they like acidic environments. So that's why I recommend to my patients Alka-Seltzer Gold, 2 tablets once a day. Only get it on Amazon, as I always say. You can't find it in the stores. Um, and one of the newest things that I think you and I have touched base on it privately just a bit, but it's ketone esters.
Yeah.
I'm just a huge fan of ketone esters. It's made an amazing difference in my own life, and to date, I have started so many patients on it, and just in the last like 90 days, and I get nothing but positive feedback. And the ketone ester causing a few hours of ketosis. Not only does it burn fat cells, give you energy, makes you feel better, but it also upregulates, helps modulate that immune system. So we're doing, and again, if someone would like to try ketone esters, you can only get it at ketoneaid.com. That's the only place right now that you can get ketone esters. And they sell 2 versions, and it's the KE4 is the one that you're supposed to use 10 cc's a day. I can't recommend it any more highly. I mean, it's really worth the money in my opinion. They're not cheap, but they're worth the money. So you get into your vitamin C, your zincs, your D's are crucial. I mean, the one thing I joke about with my patients, but the one thing that doctors agree upon with COVID is vitamin D deficiency absolutely leads to worse outcomes in COVID cases. So make sure and take your vitamin D. I prefer 10,000 units a day. Helps with mood, helps your immune system, protects those bone and joints. Going back to the old good stuff, really and truly, this is a perfect time. Even if you're happy with the overall shape you're in, but get your cardiovascular exercise up, really get that body ramped up, and just eating better, trying to get those foods that slow us down, slow our cellular communication down, just trying to stay away from those high glycemic, starchy type foods. I always tell my patients the 5 major foods, if we would avoid, we'd all be healthier: bread, rice, pasta, corn, potatoes. If it's white and you eat it and it's not cauliflower, it's probably all that not that good for us. And it really is that simple. If you just stay away from some of these things, how much better we do and feel,
Well,
even moving into the viral season.
so why is it that those things that we grew up on, that we love, that we put butter and look forward to pouring gravy over, why is it? What's it doing in the body that is so avoidable?
Well, so first of all, the reason we like it because it tastes good, right?
It
And
does.
I mean, it all tastes delicious. And I always say, hey, I'm not saying I don't like those foods because I do, but back in the 50s and 60s, our government came out and still to this day, they still stick with this. They told us that we should be having 50% carbs per meal. They even recommended soda was part of the daily diet. The daily diet regimen was soda. And so it has been started by our actual government, in the 50s and 60s. People were told to eat this way. Heck, it goes back, back in the 30s and 40s, rations in the military included cigarettes, so
Hmm.
we start these habits. But at least back in the 50s and 60s, mom or dad or both generally also had a garden. They didn't go out to McDonald's every single day. They maybe saved going out to eat for once a month. And they still, even though maybe they were eating bread with every meal and potatoes, but they were also raising fresh potatoes, fresh fruits and vegetables. And they were also a much more active society than we are today. I mean, 40 years ago, that was a much more active generation. We didn't have technology for everything. I was listening. I love this guy on Facebook. I can't tell you his name. I think he's passed away now. But he's this really overweight comedian, and he was talking about why kids don't are always on electronics. And he was like, used to you got home and you changed clothes and you went out into the backyard and mowed the yard and talked to your neighbor Bob at the fence for 2 hours, and then you went in. And he said, now all you do is stare at a BlackBerry. So that tells you how old this guy was. This was a BlackBerry. But my point is that's what people did. They got home, they went and did something outside because we didn't have all these distractions that we have now to keep us occupied on the couch. But when you get to the actual foods, again, carby foods are okay. If a guy comes to me and he's a construction worker and he's literally hammer and nail all day long, he can get away with a few more carbs in his diet versus myself, who sits at a desk or in an exam room all day long. And when we get a lot of carbs, we're just taking in a lot of sugar, and sugar causes insulin rise, insulin resistance, fat cell gain, and just this ripple effect of that our body doesn't like. We break up that homeostasis that we normally have of sugars. Everybody understands don't eat pie, cake, Coke because it's bad for us, but they don't. I find that most average patients don't know how much sugar is actually just in their food that they're eating. Like I always like to say, the glycemic index of sugar is 1. The glycemic index of a potato is 1. And so at the end of the day, there's not a difference between a potato and a big bowl of sugar. I mean, that's all it is. But people don't look at it that way most of the time.
Your body sees it that way. I mean,
That's absolutely right.
we're thinking that we're eating a potato that has fiber and is good for you, but when it goes inside, your body sees sugar, not
Sugar.
that you added sugar, and then goes, okay, we need to pump some insulin in here. Then your body thinks, hey, are we under stress? Are we under attack? Do we need to be in a
Hmm.
stressful mode? And if people are eating bread and sugar and pasta and rice, this is constantly communicating to your body. You potentially could be in a survival situation. So let's up the stress managers.
Yeah, because a lot of my concierge patients, I would say the vast majority of the men are in that 40 to 60-year-old range. I certainly have younger, I certainly have older, and I would even say most of them are somewhere in the 40 to 55-year-old range. And most of the guys that come in to see me look like very healthy guys when they walk through the front door. I think if you just looked at them, go, oh yeah, Joe looks like a pretty healthy 40. You might even say, man, he's 45 years old. He looks really good.
Yeah.
But what I start to see with these guys is I rarely ever do a full exam on them, and I come away saying there's not significant stuff that we need to work on here. And here lately, it just seems to. I was telling one of my customers, I'm like, gosh, I feel like the Grim Reaper or something because I've been running into just so much pre-diabetes and significant heart disease in these 40-year-old something guys. I mean, we, thank goodness, I have a great cardiologist that I team with that is just, in my opinion, one of the best. But these are 40 somethings and they don't realize how much the stress that we're under is causing these problems, the diet that we're under, hormonal imbalance. And so it's been a perfect segue for these guys to work on some of these things that we talk about even more intently, really getting their exercise and their diet under better control, but mixing in some of these other peptides that we've discussed, which again, thymosin alpha 1 is one of my absolute favorite peptides, and no better time than right now to start it for patients out there. And I've actually been using it for years. I've yet to date, knock on wood, not had any side effects with patients because it's already in our body. And so I really love the fact that it works and, no side effects. I mean, that's amazing.
So the flu season is coming. The main thing that I'm hearing as a theme in all of these conversations that I'm having with you is the cell senescence, is that your body, if it had the opportunity, would start cleaning house a little bit, which only impacts better clarity in your mind, better health. It starts to burn the fat. It gets to clean house. But when we're on a regular basis eating some potatoes, some sugar or pasta, or even some of the medications that we take to manage some of the symptoms these aggravate, it
Mm-hmm.
we're we're adding up over time something that becomes really significant, like you're talking about heart disease, pre-diabetes. When if you just did a little bit of intermittent fasting. I wish they would maybe change the name because I think it's like this real bad branding of thinking you have to go without eating for a while. But minor things that you can actually do if you just were a little more disciplined and understood what you're doing, I think would make a big difference in most of these people's minds.
Most people can just make some very, very, I agree. Most people can make some very minor changes in their life to make big changes with their overall immune system. And thanks for bringing up intermittent fasting because it's a huge addition to patients for improving their immune system overall. And as you know, I recommend actually as often as you can, but I at least try to do it 3 to 5 times a week. I shoot for 5 is my goal. I don't do it on the weekends, but 16 continuous hours of nothing but water, black coffee, or unsweet tea. And so my feeding time for me is 12 noon to 8 p.m. 8 p.m. comes, I shut it off, and I'm done for the night.
Hmm.
Of course, sleep counts. I had a guy look at me like I was crazy, and he's like, 16 hours. And I go, well, you sleep probably half of it. And he's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. But anyway, I get a lot of people, they always ask, would a sleeping count? Yes, sleeping counts.
That's the best part. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the best part. And so, intermittent fasting, it's first of all, it costs nothing. It's so easy to do. I mean, I've heard every excuse under the book why people can't do it. And those are people who just haven't tried yet. As I've told you, the only contraindication that I can really come up with that you would need to discuss with your physician is diabetes, especially if you're on insulin. I would not recommend intermittent fasting in those scenarios. And some of the oral diabetic medicines, same thing. So you would need to discuss if you're diabetic with your doctor. But you're going to burn fat cells, you're going to increase your energy, you're going to feel better, and you're going to upregulate that immune system. And I try to talk my patients into doing a 22-hour-ish fast every 2 to 4 weeks. I always give the example to my patients, my Fridays, I work through lunch, and we usually close around 1:30 on Fridays. And so generally when I finish charts, if it's a good day, it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm done to head home or wherever. So now all I've got to do is kind of hold out for 3 more hours to 6 p.m. and I've got 22 hours in. Is it easy? No, it sucks. My trainer, Maury, who's here, he can fast for like a day and a half and claims it's no big deal. I'm not that not that studly in that way. But on that, what I do allow myself on that 22 hour in a day fast is my meal is whatever I want it to be that night. So if I want to have some carbs or something like that, I treat myself that way because I know that my body's going to be amped up to burn off most of those carbs. I'm only eating one meal. That's it. So that's kind of my reward to myself once a month when I do that.
So why do you say 22 hours and not 24 hours?
You certainly could do 24. I just find that there's something kind of magical with my patients about 22. It works for me because we normally eat about 6 p.m. So with my schedule, that would be 22 hours. There's actually great studies that show the longer you can do a fast, the better the results are. There's actually and we have them in our office, but I don't sell them quite as much as I used to because I kind of think we can do this on a daily basis and get the same effects, but it's called Prolone. And it was actually has been developed by University of Southern California. And it is a 5-day extended fast. It's called a fasting mimicking diet, FMD. And you do eat, but they have, very specific foods in the box. Basically, it's day 1 through 5, and it tells you what times to eat it. And it's so low calorie that it basically tricks your body into thinking you're fasting for 5 days. It is an amazing process. I mean, it's a hard 5 days. I always tell my patients, there's no doubt about it. I've had a lot of people bail out at day 3, including my wife. But if you can get through it, they've shown that they showed a few things. And when they studied it, they did not have anyone change their diets. They just did this 5-day fasting mimicking diet with patients. And they showed not only did they lose weight, the average weight loss for a female is 4 to 5 pounds, 8 to 10 for a male in 5 days. But they showed that no diet counseling whatsoever at 30 days, the majority of patients had continued weight loss after 30 days because of the effect of this 5-day fasting mimicking diet. But also when they also looked at inflammatory markers that are high risk for cardiac disease, they showed a lowering of these inflammatory markers for up to 6 months just from a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And so it's a pretty amazing how the body reacts to fasting. So I think the more we can fast, the longer we can fast, I think that it's just the better effect overall we have on our inflammatory markers in our body. The problem is we can't run around and do 22-hour fast every single day. I mean, we're going to end up being too weak, too tired. Our performance is going to start to show decreases there. So that's why I like to control a little bit better. If I've got somebody that I just feel is horribly inflamed, we need to get them kick-started. They need to see a 8 to 10 pound weight loss to really get them motivated. Prolone is really, really good for them, but you also have to be very particular in who you choose for Prolone because a lot of people, like I said, will get 2 or 3 days in and be like, not doing it. And you can lose those patients at that point if you give them too much to try in the beginning.
So Prolome, L-O-M?
Yeah, Proloan.
L-O-A-N, like a loan.
Yeah, I think maybe Lone. You know what? I'm the worst speller ever.
No, I've got you beat. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Prolon. That's what it is. Just Prolon.
L-O-N.
Mm-hmm.
And you just Google that and find it, or do you sell it?
We sell it, and we'd be glad to sell it to people, but they can also buy it off of the website of just prolone.com. I'm not going to tell you that the meals taste like 5-star meals. It's soups and olives and bars and drinks, but it does have a great effect. I tell my patients, hey, if you can do it, and if you can do it every 3 to 6 months, I think that's fabulous.
So tell us more about ketone esters. Why is it esters, and what's going on there? I was watching a video, and it's like don't drink coffee and your ketone ester. So give us a little backstory there and help acclimate us so we understand a better way how to take advantage of it.
Yeah, so ketone esters just goes back to the chemistry of it. They're basically straight ketones. And like I tell my patients, don't confuse ketone esters with the ketone pyramid drinks. I don't know if those are still popular, but I know like a year or so ago, it seemed like everybody on Facebook was trying to sell you a ketone powdered drink. And those, because those don't really, in my humble opinion, don't do much other than put some caffeine in you and give you energy. Um, when people go to ketone aid, because I made this mistake the first time, there used to be two companies that made ketones esters, but I don't know the other company. Right at COVID time, they still have a website, but they say you can't order. So I don't know if they've gone out of business, just haven't taken their website down or what. So you have to buy them right now through ketoneaid.com. And they have the ketone esters plus ketone salts, which is what I accidentally ordered the first time I made my order because it was cheaper. And I'm like, oh, that's a good deal. There's like a case of them for, I don't know, 100 and something dollars. So I bought that. And really what it is it's kind of a watered down ketone ester. And I like them. They're good, but I have to use a lot more of it than with the ketone esters. And again, what ketone esters are doing in the body is they're just stimulating a 2 to 4 hour window of pure ketosis in the body. And like I tell my patients, I think ketosis is great. I just don't want 24-hour ketosis. So like ketogenic, I don't like ketogenic. The only time I agree to ketogenic with my patients if they have a tremendous amount of weight to lose and we decide to do ketogenesis for 2 to 4 weeks. Because after that, we start to see slowing of the overall, like the brain, just in performance. We also see a rapid rise in gallstones, kidney stones, and a rapid decrease in gut health because everybody who's on ketogenic for extended period of time starts to basically not go to the bathroom as much, which causes a decrease in your immune system. But if we look at ketosis on just a little snapshot, it has a ton of positives. It burns fat cells. It causes you to burn fat cells. That's what we're all kind of looking for. Very few of us probably listening don't have a few fat cells that we want to burn. It increases brain and athletic performance. It increases immunity. Now we're talking about, again, ketosis long-term, ketosis short-term, okay? So, but you can burn that system out when you just keep it stimulated the whole time. And I guess that's one of the big mantras that I guess I really tout is we like things in bursts. We most of the things that I talk about, we like to, I forgot, you actually had a term the other day and I forgot what it was, but I'm trying to think of it. We were talking about the Ben Greenfield podcast and they used a term and I thought it was a good one. I can't remember what it was now, but it's kind of rotating things in and rotating things out.
Cycling.
Yeah, kind of like cycling, but sometimes we'll cycle something in every 3 to 4 months. Sometimes we'll cycle something in every day, but only for a few hours. Mm-hmm. And because some patients are like, well, okay, can I just sip on my ketone esters all day long? And I'm like, no, I first of all, too expensive to do it that way. But two, there would be indications where I'd use it 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, but not in just a normal process for overall wellness.
Why is it that it improves brain function or clarity of your thoughts?
I think it goes back to the actual fat burning and using fat as energy. I think that has a big effect on the brain function in a positive way. But again, in small bursts, because they've done studies showing where athletic performance long term starts to decrease when you stay in ketosis. Mm-hmm. I know all of my patients that are really athletic, usually see a response within a week with ketone esters. And that's a cool thing. I tell patients, buy the smallest amount you can, which is 3 weeks if you use it properly. If you don't believe after 3 weeks it's not helping you, then don't reorder. As I tell them, I don't have any stock or anything to gain by telling you to go buy ketone esters. I just truly believe in them.
So the thing that was appealing to me was it impacts your sleep. Is that correct? Your deep sleep?
Yeah. It hasn't been one of the things that I've personally seen. I still struggle with sleep. You and I have talked about that a little bit, and that might be a good topic at some point is sleep, because sleep is so crucial. And that goes back to how do we help with the flu season, proper sleep. It goes without being said that proper sleep has something to do with just about everything. But yeah, people have reported improved sleep, just, calming the body down, less inflammation, that sort of thing. But, Dr. Seeds, he's trained us that in active COVID cases, his protocol is ketone esters and TA1, thymosin alpha 1 at extremely high doses. That's where I said that would be an occasion where I would use ketone esters 3 to 4 times a day, along with TA1 3 to 4 times a day.
So peptides, we've talked about some fasting, ketone esters, the Alka-Seltzer Gold, these things that we can do that are not really so medical in nature. And peptide therapy added on top of that is another booster or a force multiplier. So the thymosin alpha 1, what other peptides would maybe a provider consider suggesting or a patient want to request?
Yeah, so you know what? It's really where I'll have some recommendations, but this is really where it comes down to. I forgot where I heard it last week. I was listening. Actually, I think it was the Dr. Seeds podcast. Take it back. I was listening to him, and he was. It wasn't him. It was a doctor that he was interviewing, and he said, "You know what? I ask my patients every time they walk in is, what are our goals to the patient?" And I thought,
Hmm.
you know what? That's a really good question. I don't know that I actually. I feel like I maybe take that lead for my patients, and maybe that's not always a good thing. And so
Hmm.
it's actually something I'm going to start having my staff do when they come in is before I even get in, like, what's something you're wanting to work towards so that we can start helping educate? Because the one negative with peptides that I can see is that you can kind of get lost in the weeds trying to figure out what the best peptides are for you. There's so many different ways we can go with this, and they all help in their own way. And so, my favorites for immunity, TA1, we've already talked about it, thymosin beta 4, which is also made in the thymus gland. It's a repair peptide. I like to combine that. That is one that I cycle in and out every few months. I think it's a really good repair peptide. Of course, CJC, ipamorelin, probably my favorite workhorse. Just helps us function better, do better, sleep better. And BPC, I've been saying it. I'm so excited now that I can actually get BPC in the hands of my patients without a prescription. I mean, that's huge. And we've put so many patients on peptides. Heck, I had a physician this week who I told him about it. He said, you know what? I want to try it. He let me know a week later. Oh my God, my knees, my ankles, my shoulders, they're feeling so much better already. And, he was so impressed by it, and that's a physician. And so, I mean, I can just go on and on with BPC and the positive effects that BPC has. But anytime you're helping cell senescence, in my opinion, and that's what BPC is, in my opinion, we're really trying to do, along with these other gut health and brain health and musculoskeletal health. If we're helping cell senescence, we're helping the immune system, we're helping the cellular communication, we're helping the body age slower, we're doing better. So all those peptides should be on the table, plus some, for the provider and the patients.
So the BPC 157, that's the
Hmm.
one now that's available in a tablet or a capsule form.
Yeah. So as always was, but now it's a nutraceutical.
Hmm.
And so now I have the ability to sell it right off my shelf. Actually, very, very soon, we're hoping to have it as what do you call it, on my webpage where you can just buy it and have it shipped directly to yourself.
Hmm.
Patients cannot, though, get it at their supplement store.
Right.
It's only made through one nutraceutical company that only sells to physicians or providers. So
What
you will have to go get it from a provider.
what's a nutraceutical, just for clarity?
Just supplements, high grade supplements. So, like at our office, we only sell what we consider pharmacy grade or provider grade nutraceuticals. So, all natural supplements that are of the utmost quality. Because, as you probably heard me say, supplements are unregulated in the United States. So, you really got to know where your supplement comes from and what the quality is of it. So, um, anyway, but yeah, BBC now. We got another shipment in finally because we sold through it so rapidly. Used to BPC was a 30-day supply was costing my patients about $300. Now it's just a like 105, I think.
Hmm.
So we're really excited that the price has come down to at least a reasonably affordable price for most of my patients. And I tell them, buy one bottle. If you're not sold on it after 30 days, don't buy it again. I don't think there'll be very many people not continuing to purchase.
So what's the expectation instead of me assuming, it's going to improve my gut health? But what does that mean? What are some of the other things that potentially could be a benefit of taking it?
Yeah, so anytime I talk to people about BPC, this is what I tell them. BPC is made in our gut. It's a bioidentical peptide that decreases with age, and we want to get a little bit more BPC in the body. What are some of the effects of it? When we use it as injectable, it can help with ligaments and tendon repair, bony repair, so any type of acute injury, like I treat sciatica with it, rotator cuff dysfunction, ACL repairs, you name it. We use it injectable. Now that is prescription only, so
Hmm.
you have to be a patient of mine in order to do that. Oral BPC, we can use it for it's just a laundry list, but neurologic disorders, so Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, dementia, closed head traumas, um, history of concussions, those would be all things that I would talk to my patients and consider using it in. And gut disorders such as irritable bowel, inflammatory bowel, reflux disease. So anybody that's having reflux symptoms or bloatiness or alternating diarrhea, constipation, those are good indications to use it. And then for those patients that maybe they don't have a rotator cuff tear per se, but they just kind of hurt all over.
Hmm.
It's really good for those patients. It's where I like the oral a whole lot. Like one of our customers is sending her dad in to get some today because he just has osteoarthritis and just kind of hurts all over is the term that she used. And she had such a good response. At 45, she wants her 65, 70-year-old dad to take it. So he's coming in to get some today. But then the effect on cell senescence. So even if a patient says, I really don't have too much of that stuff, I say, well, it's a crucial part of our cell senescence protocol. So, we're just happy that we're able to get it in the hands of patients now easier, more affordably, because the more affordable we can make it, the more peptides that we can get in the hands of our patients. Because I firmly believe that most 40-year-olds or older need probably, if they're going to do peptides, at least two peptides. One typically is just not enough.
Well, so see, listening to what that does as your digestive system starts to get older, it produces less of that. It impacts your brain function or maybe your memory a little bit. It's so interesting to me how just your gut health can be so impactful in your overall well-being. And we were joking about the fermenting stuff, but that really is impacting that area.
Yeah, the gut is just crucial. I mean, it's as a provider, I tried to stay away from the gut forever because it's kind of this. I hate to say it, but sometimes when you get patients with gut disorders, it's like, oh God, one of those patients. But now we're realizing that there is so much to what they're actually saying,
Hmm.
and because irritable bowel syndrome, I felt like it's always been kind of a trash can term for physicians. Like, oh, I don't know what's wrong with her. She's got bloating and diarrhea and her stomach hurts a lot. We'll call her irritable bowel and move her on down the road and tell her it's her nerves.
Mm.
And there's some truth to some of that, but I think we have some really decent ways these days to start treating these things in a much better manner than we did before.
Wow. You know, th- Not realizing it, you would just go take some medication of some sort, ibuprofen for your pain, which is only impacting your gut health as well. There's just a lot of not many choices. There's not that many choices for therapy options to improve the stuff that can really ruin your day, r- really change your mood too. When you're like, after lunch, you need to start planning where you're going to be because, or, it's
Yeah.
so uncomfortable and it really diminishes your self-esteem when you're dealing with something that demands so much attention from you.
Sure. And, I just tell patients, hey, what do you have to lose by trying a month or two of BPC? if you can afford it. Okay. $100 to some people is a lot of money. $100 to some is not much money at all. I always equate it now when I go with my family afforded Chili's. I'm probably spending close to $100 these days. It's just what it costs. To me, it's worth it. And then, we haven't even discussed it, but a good probiotic or prebiotic, I think that's really important too. And so I usually will, we, of course, and most physicians that do what I do have some sort of a good probiotic. They're not expensive. And so I'll usually, if they're having gut issues, say, hey, let's do a good probiotic for at least a few months and let's get the BPC on board. Many times you can drop that probiotic off after 2 or 3 months once you kind of get their gut regulated again. But 80% of our immunity comes from our gut. So, it's pretty important.
Wow. All right. So doing a little intermittent fasting, considering the use of the BPC 157, the oral version, maybe a little ketone esters. It's a lot of things that you can start to roll into your existing management and not really need to consider what medication should you be planning to take. And that's just amazing to me, the options that we have now that most people aren't aware of, even a lot of physicians may not be aware of.
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority don't or are not aware of it, and that's why I'm so excited about what we get to do. And I always go back to talk about SSRP, Dr. Seed's training course, but we're excited because we get to go again and right at a month, and so it's already been 2 months. We go every 3. I think it's September 16th and 17th. We're going back, and this one is all on neurologic disorders, so dementia, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, ALS.
Wow.
So we're really, and it's really awesome. It's not just about Dr. Seed's. We get, it's 32 of us that get together, and a lot of high-end providers are there, and you'll get somebody who specializes in ALS who can tell you, hey man, here's what I'm doing, and I'm actually getting some improvement in my patients. It's a good story. So one of the doctor that does some ALS, she was telling the story that she had called this gentleman's ALS doctor specialist at Mayo Clinic. And she had talked to this guy about some different peptides she felt could help him, but she wanted the ALS specialist to sign off on it because, like I've talked to you about, you don't want to, excuse my French, but a pissing match between the specialist and a peptide doctor.
Yeah.
And she said that this doctor, the specialist at Mayo Clinic, got on the phone and was furious with her and said, "How dare you give my patient hope? This man has ALS. He's not going to get better. He's only going to get worse. And I not that I'm happy about it, but that's just the way it's going to go." And she's like, "But I've helped ALS patients. Yes, they are still going to die, but I can give them better quality of life for a bit, at least, so they can enjoy their family." I just thought, my gosh, like if I was that guy, I'd be like, sure, try it. Heck, what has this patient got to lose as long as they're educated? And she said she never was able to get that patient on peptides because the specialist just would not sign off on it. And I just think, God, what closed-mindedness is that? And there's a lot of people like that. And there's patients like that, and that's okay. The good news for us is, and any provider that's listening, is there are, in my opinion, plenty of patients wanting to think outside the box. And so they're out there. You just have to start learning it, living it, and teaching it to your patients.
All right, cell senescence. So many little things that we could be tweaking to improve and support our immune system to fight off things, to think clearly, to have more energy, to sleep better. That's crazy. All happening a lot in your gut. Dr. Kris, excellent conversation. So how should someone reach out to you if they want to maybe discuss including peptides in their practice, or maybe there's someone that maybe wants a little consulting from you individually?
Yeah, just you can certainly just give our office a call. Easiest way to find all of our contact info is just go to the resurgeclinic.com. My email is Dr. Kris with a K, Kris at theresurgeclinic.com. Either of those routes will get you to me or to my staff, and we can help you how best ever you feel fit.
All right. So we'll be having these conversations weekly, discussing all things that we could improve our health or improve our existing practice to offer solutions and therapies to patients that maybe we weren't considering before the invention of or the introduction of peptides, actually. They've been around for a long time, but Dr. Kris, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right, and that's a wrap.